Let's look at the easiest way to memorize all the antibiotics mechanism of action. You have to memorize only a group of drugs in one PowerPoint slide. Okay, let's look at it. The tip is BPAG malprotein phenasp. It sounds a little weird, but trust me, it's going to work. Okay, here is the tip. All these caps letters represents the class name, and the bold letters represents the bactericidal antibiotics. Okay, let's look at that. First five classes are cell wall synthesis inhibitors, and the first one, beta-lactam, is a large class with a subdivision. This include subclasses also. So these are cell wall synthesis inhibitor, BPAG, BEPAG. All these major classes represent drugs which kill the bacteria by targeting cell wall synthesis. They break down the cell wall. Therefore, these are bactericidal drugs. Okay, caps and bold here. Okay, let's look at it. I want you to study one drug at a time. Example, add one example first. Penicillins, all the drugs ends in cillins. Example, amoxicillin. Cephalosporin, drug starts with a ceph. Cephalexin. Carbapenems, drugs ends in pinum. Meropenem. Monobactam, commonly used drug is a single one aztreonam. How I remember is mono is single, so A or one, so that's why aztreonam. The next, epoxide, this is a new class of antibiotic, fosfomycin. Polypeptide, so this is a class with only amino acid in it. That means these antibiotics are made up of amino acid or proteins only. They are called polypeptides. Example, bacitracin. So here, remember, this is triple antibiotic, a neosporin, one of the component. Some people remember like bus and van, those examples, but anyway, remember bacitracin. Antimycobacteria, these are tuberculosis drug. Isoniazid, that's a super drug. Sonia, that's how I remember. Isoniazid is a drug which kill bacteria, that is bactericidal. Glycopeptide, example, vancomycin. Glycopeptides are very large molecule. These are large glucose and protein connected molecules. These are very huge, so that they can get into only gram positive bacteria, not gram negative, because it cannot pass through gram negative bacteria sporins. Okay, anyway, so all these are cell wall synthesis inhibitors. Next four classes are protein synthesis inhibitors. These are, see, these are bacteriostatic. Okay, they inhibit the growth of bacteria. There is a long list. You're supposed to distinguish the 30S and 50S ribosome division. That I will make another video. Let's study this first four classes. These are most commonly asked one. That's the reason. Malt, macrolide, azithromycin. Okay, sometimes you hear that all the mycin drugs. No, that's not right. All the mycin drugs are not macrolides. How it is easy to remember is, remember the throw. Throw drugs are macrolides. How do I remember is throwing up, because not azithromycin but erythromycin, a drug, has GI symptoms. They showed adverse effects. That's why I remember as throwing up. It can cause nausea, vomiting also. Anyway, thromycin drugs are in macrolide. Azithromycin, this is a drug with a long half-life. Then aminoglycosides, amikacin, Amy, that's what I remember. Lincosamide, clindamycin, this is a famous drug. This drug is actually very notorious for causing the C. diff diarrhea. How I remember is Linda goes to Lou or Linda Lou. Anyway, lincosamide, clindamycin, remember that. Tetracyclines, example, commonly used drug is doxycycline. There is another drug named tetracycline. Keep in mind, tetracycline is a class name, but there is a drug name also, tetracycline. Anyway, tetracyclines, all these 4 classes, lingusamide, aminoglycoside, macrolide, all these are protein synthesis inhibitors. These are bacteriostatic. Next large class, these are nucleic acid synthesis inhibitors. Keep in mind, there are 2 types of nucleic acid, DNA and RNA. So both are bactericidal, FNA, this one. Okay, let's look at the DNA synthesis first. Fluoroquinolones, example, moxifloxacin. Okay, how do you remember? Fluorine containing, easy, F, fluoromoxifloxacin. Okay, so usually you see the textbook with this one class as DNA synthesis inhibitor. I want you to study the next class also, because metronidazole, that's a cheap drug, commonly used one, prodrug, activated only in the anaerobic bacteria. So this drug I seen in the board exam questions, and I like to ask for the exam too. So I want you to study that. Nitroimidazole, metronidazole, tinidazole, etc. These are DNA synthesis inhibitors. The next is RNA synthesis inhibitor. Example, rifampin. Okay, RR, that's how I remember. Rifampin, this is a commonly asked question because rifampin has a lot of drug interactions. That's also an antimycobacterial drug for antituberculosis drug. Next one, your lucky 13, sulfonamides. Sulfonamides are sulfur drugs, sulfamethoxazole. Here you go. The mechanism of action, how I remember, sulfur 4, folic acid synthesis inhibitors. The next one, last class, polymyxins. Polymyxin B, similar to tetracycline. The class name and the drug name similar. Polymyxins, polymyxin B is the drug name. How I remember the mechanism of action? PM, plasma membrane. These drugs kill bacteria by inhibiting the membrane synthesis, cell membrane synthesis. These are also bactericidal. So we started with a cell wall synthesis and ending with the cell membrane synthesis. So here you go, BPAG malprotein FNASP. But one more tip I will use, because the last FNASP is little confusing for me. So why? Because BPAG is easy. First 5 classes, cell wall synthesis inhibition, malt protein synthesis inhibition, that is very clear. But the FNASP is little confusing for me. That's why I cross check with another tip, Dr. Affam at the end. So here you go. D, DNA synthesis. R, RNA synthesis. F, folate synthesis. M, membrane synthesis. So usually I put all these 4 letters at the end and match with that. Hope this helps. Okay, I have some matching questions. You can play with this after you study everything. I'll make some practice questions in the next couple of videos. Okay, hope this helps.